cold casting a bear skull using smooth cast 57D urethane resin and real nickel silver powder. This is the second part of a two-part video tutorial. If you'd like to check out the making of the mold for this project, make sure you click the link below and that will take you to the mold making portion. Now, in today's video, we do have several goals that we're trying to achieve. We're trying to rotocast a cold casting to create a display piece of a bear skull. We're going to show you how to cast the smooth cast 57D solid and hollow, as well as how to create a display piece of your work once you finish the casting. So let's just jump into this project and see how it's done. Our project requires a hollow casting for the skull itself and a solid casting for the lower jaw. This makes the Smoothcast 57D an ideal product for this application. With its short working time and its gradual cure, it allows us to hand rotocast the skull itself while the lower jaw is cast solid. Keep in mind that the cure time will depend on the amount of material that you're using and the shape of the casting that you're creating. This product has a mix ratio of 1:1 by volume, so we don't need to use a gram scale, while the working time or pot life is 3 minutes. The cure time or handling time will be 30 minutes. The Smoothcast 57D is translucent white in color when cured, which makes it ideal for pigmentation in the mixing process. One thing to keep in mind when working with the Smoothcast 57D is that if you're casting thin sections or the casting itself doesn't have enough mass, it's not thick, it's very thin-walled, then the casting themselves will take longer to fully cure. As always, you want to follow all the material instructions and pre-mix the individual components. The A and B components are thoroughly pre-mixed before being dispensed. Now I can simply mark my dispensing cups. This is 1:1 mix ratio by volume, so equal amount. And I'm first going to dispense the part B. And since I'm doing a cold casting on this with nickel silver, I'm going to go ahead and dispense some nickel silver powder. Same amount as the part B. So 1 part of the part B, 1 part of the metal filler, and then a little bit of the So Strong black to give our casting a nice deep hue. Once you combine the pigment with the part B, we can add the metal filler, and that is going to be mixed in well. Scrape the sides, scrape the bottom, and then we can go ahead and dispense the part A. The reason why I wait to dispense the part A, it's because of the atmospheric moisture and the part A being sensitive to it. So I always wait till the last minute to dispense the part A for my urethane plastics. The 3 components are now mixed thoroughly together by scraping the sides and scraping the bottom, and then transferred into a clean mixing container. Always keep the working time of the material you're working with in mind when doing double mixes. You don't want to have the material set up in your mixing container. Now the product is mixed one more time, scrape the sides, scrape the bottom, and then quickly transferred into our mold. The mold is now rotationally spun, so we're going to spin the mold in a 360-degree fashion so that the entire inside gets covered with a layer of resin. And you can see I have that mixing cup at the bottom, so I can always dump out a little bit, then pour it back in and continue to spin that mold until the working time or the pot life has fully expired and the resin does not move. Here it's important again to remember that thin-walled application take a little bit longer to set up than if you cast the material in mass. Now the first layer is allowed a partial cure for 15 minutes while we set up a second batch and continue to rotationally cast into the mold. A second batch or second layer is dispensed and mixed just like we did the first. Make sure you scrape the sides, scrape the bottom, I like to add the metal filler in the second layer just in case there was an area inside the mold that wasn't covered by the first layer. We'll be able to cover that with the second layer and avoid any kind of inconsistencies in the outer layer itself that is visible. Because of the shape of the skull that we're casting and the metal powder being a thickening agent for the casting resin, we only need to apply 2 layers for this casting here. I didn't want to make the casting too heavy so that it wouldn't be supported easily by the base we're planning to put it onto. The procedure is now repeated by spinning the mold in a 360-degree fashion to equally cover the entire inside of the mold with a layer of resin. Again, we're going to continue to spin the mold until the resin actually has stopped moving. You can always take a look inside the mold and see if there's any movement, or you can also look inside the mixing cup, tilt that to the side, and see if the material is still moving or if it's already solidified. We're looking to achieve a thickness of the casting inside that mold of about 1/4 inch, plus minus, 1/4 inch to 5/16 of an inch, somewhere around 7 to 8 millimeters thickness. Will be sufficient for a small piece like this to be nice and sturdy and hard and won't disform. Now, once the material has stopped moving, you can set the mold aside and allow this to cure for 30 minutes. Now, while the skull itself is casted and curing, we can focus our attention to the lower jaw of our project. And we're going to repeat the same procedure as far as dispensing and mixing the components together. And then instead of rotationally casting, we're just going to pour the material inside our mold and let it solidify. Now, once I pour the material inside, I'm going to still give it a little bit of a tilt, make sure that the resin makes its way all the way down into the tips of the teeth. And then we're going to top off the mold with the rest of the material until we can see material come out of the vent hole on the other side. The Smoothcast 57D is now allowed a 30-minute cure. We can now go ahead and demold our castings. I'm going to start with the lower jaw and slowly pry that block mold open and retrieve our casting out of that mold. Again, I'm going slowly here, not to rip anything. You can see there's minimal flashing on that casting. And then I'm going to focus on demolding the skull itself. So remove some of the flashing and then slowly peel off that soft silicone mold that we made off of the casting. And you can see here that the mold itself peels off quite nice, and those plug areas and the nose and underneath the skull where the spine attaches demolded quite easily. Now the casting is polished using some steel wool. Scrape a couple of those seam lines off as well. And then polish it to bring that metal powder that's in the resin to the surface and make it basically shine. So I'm just going to quickly go through the entire skull and then also the lower jaw and polish the entire surface to make it look as if it was cast in metal and make it look as realistic as possible to what a real metal casting would look like. And here you can see the results of the project. The casting is put together and looks quite fantastic. I'm really happy how this came together. It looks like it was made out of metal. Now, I'm going to finish this project by mounting this skull on a small pedestal that I made using some Smoothcast onyx and get it ready for display, basically. Now, to adhere the skull to the pedestal, I'm going to use some Super Instant. This is an epoxy-based 2-part quick setting adhesive that will bond many substrates to each other. And I'm going to use a couple of metal pins to hold the lower jaw in place with the rest of the skull. And for that, I'm simply going to drill some holes in the lower jaw and clean those out, of course. And then we're going to drill some holes into the skull itself where the lower jaw sits. Once we have that nice and clean, we can focus on mixing up some Super Instant. This is a 1-to-1 mix ratio by volume, so easy to dispense and mix. The Super Instant is simply pushed into the cavity, and then we're going to apply the metal pins that are going to hold the lower jaw with the rest of the skull together. And since this is a fast-setting adhesive, we can work quite rapidly. We don't have to wait long periods. I can simply attach the pins to one end of the lower jaw and then move on fast to attach the lower jaw to the rest of the skull. Now, once everything is put together, we can then adhere the skull to the pedestal base or to the... Now I'm simply going to drill a hole the same size of the stem that we are trying to adhere the skull to. And once again, a little bit of the Super Instant is applied to that stem. And then the skull is going to be placed onto that. Note that in the mouth of the skull right now, there is a space holder to make sure that the adhesive cures in the position that we want it to. And now I can simply place the skull onto that pin with the adhesive. And I'm going to do it upside down here to make sure I don't add unnecessary texture to the area. And I'm simply going to slowly screw it on and position it into the placement that I want it to be. Once again, I'm going to use a couple of cups to hold the skull in position while the adhesive cures for 5 minutes. And this is what the project looks like when it's all finished and put together. We're able to make a mold and cast into the mold and get a nice presentational piece casted into the mold that looks like real metal casting. So I'm really happy how this project turned out. Now, if you got inspired by this project and you'd like to give your own projects a go and need some material, you can visit any one of our distributors around the world. So, and there you have it, a step-by-step procedure that I use to create this cold casting of a bear skull with real nickel silver powder. Now, let's just take a quick look at our project. We were able to rotocast a cold casting and keep it lightweight by using the right product, Smoothcast 57D. We also showed you how to use the same material to solid cast, part of the same project, as well as how to finish your project in a nice display unit that's ready to be shown off. Now, if you have an idea about what we should do next, please let us know down in the comments below. If you like this video, hit the thumbs up button. To keep up with our latest mold making, casting, and other videos, remember to subscribe.